All right, let's get right into this. We're looking at a really tough story today, coming out of Narsinghpur in Madhya Pradesh. It's about a young teacher, and what happened to her is shocking. But as you'll see, her story shines a light on a much bigger systemic problem that we absolutely need to talk about. And it all starts with a moment of unbelievable violence. Just read that sentence. It's from the source material, and it is horrifying. This is where our story kicks off. It's a direct account of a moment where harassment didn't just cross a line, it completely exploded into a brutal, violent attack on someone's life.
So how in the world did things get to that point? Let's break down exactly what happened that Monday afternoon in Narsinghpur.
The whole sequence of events was just terrifyingly fast. I mean, it was deliberate. An 18-year-old former student, Suryansh Kochar, apparently just barges into the home of his teacher, Smriti. He douses her in petrol and with no hesitation sets her on fire. It was only because her neighbors heard the screams and ran in that she was rushed to a hospital.
You want to know how severe this attack was? It comes down to one painful number, 25%. That's how much of her body was covered in burns, mostly on her legs. It's just a brutal reminder of the physical toll of this attack. Now, the good news, if you can call it that, is that the story doesn't end there. Doctors managed to get her stable, and they confirmed she was out of immediate danger. But her injuries were so severe that she had to be moved to the Jabalpur Medical College for more specialized treatment. But, violence this extreme, it almost never just comes out of nowhere. To really get why this happened, we have to look back at the history between this teacher and her former student.
So on one side, you've got Smriti. She's 26, a guest teacher and a lab tech, and everyone described her as just dedicated and hardworking. And on the other side, you have Suryansh Kochar, an 18-year-old former student who already had a history of what the sources are calling problematic behavior. And get this, for 2 to 3 years, Suryansh had apparently been harboring this completely one-sided infatuation with his teacher. So this wasn't some new issue. This was a long-term obsession that had been building for years. So, what was the breaking point? How did this obsession suddenly turn violent? Well, on August 15th, it came to a head when he made an inappropriate comment about her clothes. And she did exactly what she was supposed to do. She stood up for herself and filed an official complaint. But that act of defiance, her refusal to just stay quiet, that apparently was the trigger. It enraged him. And in his mind, it seems it justified this horrific act of revenge. And this is where we need to zoom out, because Smriti's terrifying experience isn't just one person's tragedy. It's actually a symptom of a much, much larger pattern of negligence that we really have to look at. So you have to ask yourself, was this really just a one-off, isolated incident? Well, according to activists and all our sources, the answer is a hard no, not even close. Smriti's case really pulls back the curtain on several massive systemic failures. You see how vulnerable young female teachers can be, how institutions often fail to act on these kinds of complaints, the very real dangers of unaddressed obsessive behavior in kids. And then, underneath it all, this culture of silence that just lets these problems grow. So, in the face of all this, the local community and the authorities, they didn't stay quiet. Let's take a look at how people on the ground actually responded. This quote from a local community member just says it all, doesn't it? It captures the shock, the outrage. There's this clear understanding that she was attacked for doing the right thing, for standing up for herself. And it ends with this powerful demand for real accountability, a call to make sure this case becomes a turning point. And to be fair, the authorities did move fast. Suryansh was arrested within hours of the attack, and now he's facing some very serious charges, including attempt to murder. So the response was immediate, and that is a crucial first step. But here's the thing, an arrest is a reaction, not a solution. So the final, and maybe the most important part of this whole story, is the fight for safer schools. How do we stop this from ever happening again? Well, women's rights activists are pushing for some really clear, actionable steps. First, put real counseling programs in place to get at the psychological roots of this behavior. Second, create dedicated protection cells so teachers have a safe, official way to report threats. And third, build rapid response systems, so when a complaint is made, it is never, ever ignored again. And this all comes back to a core problem, something called a culture of impunity. What that means is a climate where people who harass or commit violence truly believe they can get away with it because they don't expect any serious consequences.
That's the culture that has to be torn down.
So, at the end of the day, while we all hope for Smriti's full recovery, the larger fight is against the culture of silence that allows these things to happen in the first place. Harassment can't just be brushed off. It has to be treated for exactly what it is, a serious, critical red flag that much worse violence could be coming.
And that leaves us all with one final, really important question to think about. In our schools, in our communities, what is the true cost of staying silent?